You probably can't tell right now, but I'm surrounded by books, and there's a reason for that. In this episode of Erudite Magic, I'm sharing some hidden gems that I've culled from some out-of-print books. Now, normally I only cover books that are still in print, but I thought it might be fun to go back through my library here and find some tricks that I've looked at, performed, taken note of, or just otherwise think are great and worthy of your attention. The goal is hopefully push you back into your library to look at the books that you already have and find some of those hidden gems for yourself. I'm going to provide you with the name of the trick, a little bit of the description of what it's about so you can decide whether it might be something you want to look at. I'll tell you where you can find it both in the book and the page number. I have quite a list of tricks to cover, everything from parlor and stage mentalism to impromptu close-up tricks that you can have with you all the time. There's a lot to cover, so let's get into this. Oh yeah, one more thing. These aren't in any particular order, so check the timestamps down below to jump around and find what interests you. First up, I have a card trick from J.K. Hartman in the book Card Dodgery by Vanishing Ink, my employer. The trick is called Holy Grail, and it's based off of a marketed effect. If I boil it down for you, the synopsis is that it's a predicted card at any number. You introduce a deck and an envelope at the very beginning of the effect. The deck can be in their hands, as can be the envelope. Your participant names a number, counts down to that number in the deck, and the card matching up with the number matches the prediction in the envelope. As with most of the items in this list, you'll need to make a little something yourself. It's not difficult, and there will be a small bit of mental dexterity needed, but that's kind of true of most magic tricks. The effect is very impressive and can be done either as a close-up piece or a parlor piece. Now that's really a card trick, could be dressed up as mentalism, and our next piece is something that could be used in almost any situation as well. It is Ted Leslie's teleport envelope and can be found in his excellent book, Paramiracles. Ted gives you a number of routines that use the teleport envelope, but what is the teleport envelope? It's a utility device, a switching envelope that is different than almost any other switching envelope you've ever seen, because the entire thing is completely hands-off. You give someone in your audience a manila envelope and ask them to put something in there, whether it's a face-down card or a bill or a billet, anything that could fit in the confines of the envelope. And when that envelope is opened by your participant or audience member, I might add, it has already switched out to your desired force object. If that doesn't ignite the fires of your imagination, then I don't know what will. Ted offers a number of uses for it in his book. It's just such a brilliant and devious piece of magic. Again, you'll need some arts and crafts supplies and a little bit of handiwork, but you can batch make these. And again, I have used this to great effect. If you're interested in impromptu, anytime, anywhere magic that can be repeated, and probably one of the greatest pieces of close-up magic ever created, look no further than Crazy Man's Handcuffs in the Magic of Michael Ammar. I learned this decades ago, really, when I bought the book, and in fact, it was one of the reasons that I bought his book. All you need are 2 regular rubber bands that you can wear around your wrist. It really doesn't get any more economical than this. For those who don't know the effect, you place the rubber bands on your fingers, linking them together and demonstrating that there's no way to get out of this predicament. And yet, in just a moment, the rubber bands melt right through each other in a very visual way. And then you get to repeat that multiple times from different angles, each time offering your participant a better view. If you don't know this one or don't already perform it and you have access to that book, I highly recommend that you check it out, because this is one you should know how to perform, where anytime you have 2 rubber bands, you're prepared to do several minutes worth of one of the most astonishing close-up tricks ever conceived. Moving right along, if you aren't familiar with Anthony Owen's Secrets, this is another older Vanishing Ink book, and I haven't spent as much time in this one as I should, but I was going through it recently and I stumbled across a really great trick that just is completely impossible. The trick is called Brainwash, and it's a very clever predicted card type effect with a borrowed deck. So with a little bit of preparation, you can go over to a friend's house, you can ask to borrow a deck, you'll mark the back of one of the cards, and then mix up that deck so that card is lost. You'll show them your wallet, that inside your wallet you have a predicted card. You'll then get your participants to name any card, and it really can be any card they want. And then you'll spread through the deck and show them the card that you marked previously, which is the exact one that they name. But it doesn't just stop there. You'll then go back to your wallet for the card that you showed them before, remove it, and show them that it is the exact same card that they named, that was marked, and now you've replaced it so that they have their entire deck back again. There are some light arts and crafts, and you will need a card to wallet style wallet to fully play out the routine. Speaking of great card tricks, one of the names that always comes to mind when you think about devious magic with cards is John Bannon. The trick is called Dead Reckoning, and it's an impossible mental location of a chosen card type of effect. Here's how it plays out. You introduce a deck. You have your participant cut some cards off the top of the deck, shuffle them in their hand, they look at a card, remember it, bury it with some more cards, mix those cards some more. There's no doubt their card is completely lost. They give you back the pack, you reassemble the deck, and you're ready to demonstrate what you're about to do. You're going to ask them to mentally spell out the name of their card as you demonstrate with an example, and merely think stop when they're done spelling their card. After you show them exactly what you're going to do, they think about the spelling of their card as you deal cards one at a time, and at the moment that they're thinking stop, you stop and show them that the next card is the card they chose. Here's the beauty about this. It sounds impossible because it is impossible, and the deviousness of the method is really what makes this shine as a gem to me. There have to be other applications to this principle. I'm just not aware of any. This is a great trick to fool everyone at the club or your next convention, but it will equally fool lay people as well, and is just such a great piece of card magic theater. Oh, and did I mention, it is supremely easy to do. Jumping back into a bit of mentalism, the artful mentalism of Bob Cassidy has some of the most performable mentalism I know. I certainly perform a number of pieces from here, and great news for everyone who's been waiting. I hear it is coming back into print at some point soon. Anyway, there's a trick in here called the name and place routine. It was released as an individual video download through Penguin Magic, so of course you could check it out there, but I know that as book lovers, you'll want to check out the original source where Bob Cassidy wrote this up. The effect is a simple one. You ask two people to help you. One of them is thinking of a name, the other person is thinking of a place. They write it down to lock in their thoughts. Your participant mixes up the little pieces of paper and then hands you one for elimination. That is, you burn it. Immediately after destroying the piece of paper, you reveal the thought that was on the remaining slip. Of course, you're also able to come up with the other piece of information, and he gives you ways to help tie those two thoughts together, and how surprising it is that often they do link. If you believe in the definition of impromptu being prepared, this is something that you could demonstrate at a friend's house quickly and easily. It doesn't require a lot of advanced preparation, and it's the perfect type of mentalism for you to have in your back pocket for that next time you're at a party or at a restaurant or somewhere where you have access to a couple pieces of paper and something to write with. It's powerful, easy to do, and you can learn it right here with dozens of other great tricks in the artful mentalism of Bob Cassidy. Coming back to card tricks, let's talk about Simon Aronson for a second. I think that he's often underappreciated because you automatically associate him with memorized deck routines. And while I happen to like those, I recognize that many of you do not yet have that tool in your arsenal. Fear not, the trick that I'm about to recommend doesn't use a memorized deck. It uses a really devious principle that has been used to fool Penn and Teller, and it's called the undue influence principle. It's effectively a self-working principle. Simon gives you a lot of different applications, some more difficult and involving a mem deck than others, but the basic one, which you can find in his Try the Impossible, lets you have two participants choose cards, return them to the deck. You have two prediction cards that were in the deck that indicate the positions of the two chosen and returned cards, and it's absolutely correct. And like I said earlier, it's self-working. It's a real fooler, and every time you do it for yourself, you will marvel that it actually works. I've got a whole another half of gems, so I hope you're having a good time listening to these and hopefully pulling some books off your shelf. But if you're wondering as you watch this, how do I get some of these books since they're out of print? Well, I'm glad you asked. The sponsor of this week's video, Don's Magic and Books, specializes in books that are rare, hard to find, or out of print. Now, of course, he also sells new books that just hit the market, but if we're talking about subjects like this, I can't think of a better resource for you to have in your back pocket than Don. He's constantly on the hunt acquiring new collections, and because he prices them in such a fair and reasonable way, these books don't tend to last very long. So if you're looking for titles to add to your library that you know are going to be slightly harder to source, definitely check out the link that I'll drop down in the description below and see what he has right now. Check back frequently though, because he's constantly getting new books, updating his site, and of course, selling some of these books and shipping them out with his fast and free shipping if you live in the United States and meet certain minimum thresholds. I don't know what you're waiting for. As we get back into this list, be sure to check out Don's Magic and Books. The newspaper headline prediction is a really cool closer for any stand-up show, and I found one of the best versions that I've ever come across in Apocalypse magazine. So I know I've been talking mostly about books, but you shouldn't be afraid to check out some of the out-of-print periodicals as well. The trick is appropriately and simply enough titled Impromptu Headline Prediction, and it was contributed by Stan Lobenstern. I've actually performed this for an IBM banquet, and it is really an impressive piece of mentalism. As with many headline predictions, the effect is you mail your prediction to the venue with attention to whoever your host is there. They collect the envelope from the mail room at your venue, and you ask them to bring along a copy of that day's newspaper or bring it along yourself. It really is that day's newspaper. At the end of your show or whenever you're ready, ask them on stage, have them bring the envelope with them. There's nothing to be done. They can open the envelope, read out what you wrote, and it will exactly match the headline from that day's newspaper. It's pretty simple to do, and it is an amazing fooler. If you have a significant other or someone you live with and you've kind of wanted to get them involved with your magic but not ask too much of them, then this next piece is for you. If you look back to history and the secret ways of Al Baker, he divulges a really neat routine that involves whoever you want. They'll have to learn a little bit of a secret code, but basically someone can come over to your house, choose a card while you're out of the room, and with the help of your assistant, you'll be able to mentally reveal that card in whatever way you want. It's clean, simple, and fooling, exactly what you would expect from Al Baker. If we move away from cards and mentalism for a second, there's a piece in Close Up and Personal by David Regal, one of the first books that he put out with his own magic, and it's called The Poor Man's Wallet. It's a fun little stunt to carry around with you or to perform for some of your coworkers or something like that, with the premise being that you've invented this wallet that will protect your money. You show them a piece of paper that you folded into a wallet type of thing, you borrow a bill, have them sign it, put it in the piece of paper, cut the paper in half, show them clearly that their bill has been cut in half, and then quite simply restore it. As you can imagine, there are some very basic and minor arts and crafts, but it's a fun piece to perform and obviously very memorable. Keeping it in the close-up realm, but moving back to mentalism, Doug DeMint published a magic square that can be done close up and walk around, which is extremely rare. Most of us, when we think about the magic square, we think about the big easel and the presentation in front of a large crowd, but Doug has found a way to do this instantly with basically no math skills. You can do this on your business cards in a walk around environment and give everyone a different magic square. It doesn't end up being the exact same thing. It's brilliant and a fun way to move away from those mind reading or card experiments that we're all so used to doing in that walk around environment. Speaking of business cards, Jerry Menser published a great version of what we kind of have known and been popularized as the 8-card brainwave, but his version was called X Marks the Spot, published in Close Up Cavalcade. He used 6 business cards. You fan a group of business cards to have someone take one, and then you demonstrate that the one that they took is the only unusual business card. For example, it has an X marked on it, while the others are just regular business cards. It's a cool way to hand out your business card, and you really don't have to carry much with you, so this is another one of those pocket miracles that will make an impression when you're ready to hand out your business card. Speaking of Nick Trost with the 8-card brainwave, in his book, The Card Magic of Nick Trost, which has been out of print for a while, is supposed to be back this year, but as of right now, still isn't available. He has a trick in there called Lost and Found, which I've talked about before. It's an easy-to-do card location. Your participant chooses a card, returns it to the deck, cuts the deck, shuffles the deck themselves, hands back this mess to you, and you are able to find, locate, or otherwise divine their card. He doesn't give you an elaborate presentation, and in fact, that's the point of all of this. It opens your mind to new possibilities, new ways of doing tricks, new methods, techniques, things that you can add to your arsenal. So if you own that book, I recommend you check it out. And in my newsletter, I have discussed in the past ways that you could tweak this trick to make it different and add another layer of impossibility to it. So if you aren't already subscribed to that, you could check it out down in the comments below. Moving back to periodicals and Apocalypse, there's a neat piece by Richard Vollmer that is a prediction of different cards. You're going to lay out a grid of cards You're going to let your participants make choices about where to move the cards and how to mix them up, and then they will follow your prediction procedure that you laid out and gave to them at the very beginning of the evening. This is another one of those really great pieces that you can do when you go over to a friend's house for dinner, borrow a deck of cards, and adds a lot of intrigue and suspense to what amounts to a matching card routine. You see, at the end of this mixing procedure by your participants and your prediction, you end up with matching pairs of cards in an impossible way. I'll add that this idea he published is a clever addition to a lot of different routines where you are going to have some sort of predicted outcome. The procedure in advance was something that really stuck with me. I bookmarked it, and now I want to share it with you. Let me know what exciting ways you find to use it in your procedures. Sticking with periodicals, when we look back at Richard's Almanac, there are a ton of great tricks in there, but one that always stood out to me was Bob McAllister's Green Warp, which is a card warp routine using one card and a dollar bill. I always think it's interesting when you could take a card trick and involve another prop. So if you've been following this whole video, then you know I've already given you something from Close Up and Personal, the poor man's wallet, where you borrow a bill and cut it in half. Well, now you could take that same dollar bill and involve a card where you push it through the bill and it turns itself inside out as you go back and forth through the bill in a number of convincing displays. And again, with a little bit of preparation and forethought, this can play like it's completely impromptu. If you want another stand-up piece of mentalism, there's an older out-of-print book called Miracles of My Friends 2 by Burton Sperber. In this volume, a young Rob Zabrecki shares a trick that allows you to introduce a sealed envelope which you can hold up. You'll ask for a show of hands about how many people in the audience are skeptical about your psychic or mentalism abilities. You'll do a count of those people, and when they open the envelope, you've correctly predicted how many people would be skeptical and include the note that you hope to change their minds. It's a great opening effect and hits all of the right beats to be quick, punchy, audience involvement, and at the end has an amazing payoff. Finally, who doesn't love a good ace-cutting routine? The classic magic of Larry Jennings illustrates that sometimes you don't have to go very far into a book to find a hidden gem. In fact, the very first trick in the book, called Always Cut the Cards, is an ace cutting routine that can be done from a borrowed shuffled deck in use. I'm calling this an ace cutting routine, but in fact, you and your participant are taking turns losing the aces in the deck, cutting them into the middle, each of you clearly burying the card. And yet, at the end of the procedure, when you buried the 4 aces, you show that the aces have returned to the top of the deck. Doesn't get much more clean than this. It's an impressive piece of magic, and again, very easy to do. While that does conclude this list, and I'm probably going to do another one of these because I have a lot of tricks that I've come across over the years that I think would be beneficial to you. But know that I'm sharing all of these hidden gems that I found with you because I hope it's helpful to you. I hope it piques your interest in getting back into your library or looking at your books or doing more research or even performing for some friends. If you want to discover your own hidden gems, I've made a video for you here to help you with that, and I recommend you check out this video about writing things down and how that can help in your process. As always, my friends, I appreciate you watching, and until next time, keep reading.